I am very lucky that I have two dear friends that I met right here in my village, two Americans who we just happened to meet, and we've gone on trips together, and we've had such a wonderful time together. And both of them are moving back to the US.
Oh no! I thought this was a good. I thought this was a happy story, Amy.
No,
I was like, oh, at least she's happy. At least she has these two people. Welcome to the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. I'm your host, Sean, and this week I get into a conversation with someone from the USA about just how difficult it can be to make friends with Germans. If you're new to the show, subscribe, thegermanexperience.de/subscribe. And I've also made it easier to rate the podcast. If you go to thegermanexperience.de/rate, you will have an option to review the show on either iTunes if you're an Apple user. And if you're not an Apple user, you have an option to click on Podchaser and you can leave me a review on Podchaser. And if you don't know, Podchaser is a very cool website for discovering new podcasts. And you can get recommendations there, and you can also review the podcasts that you love. So I definitely recommend podchaser.com anyway. But like I said, thegermanexperience.de/rate, and you can review me on either iTunes or Podchaser. And I would love to get a review from you because it's good feedback for me to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, and any feedback that you might have. Also, feel free at any time to email me at info@thegermanexperience.de. Right, this week's guest, Amy, she's from the United States of America. She loves living in Germany. And in fact, it's always been a dream of hers, so this is kind of a dream come true for her to be here. But despite being so positive, open, sociable, and outgoing, she still faces challenges with making friends in Germany. And the thing is, she does everything you're always advised to do for making friends with Germans. Put yourself out there, be open, take part in things. And discussing with her just highlights how big of a challenge making strong connections with Germans can be for foreigners. I think this is something that you might feel is you. You feel like you're the problem, but actually this is a common problem. It keeps coming up on the podcast. And as we can see, even if you follow everyone's advice of what you're supposed to do, it doesn't mean you're not going to have difficulties making friends with Germans. So that's what I loved about this discussion with Amy. Oh, and she also has a very, very controversial take on Birkenstocks and socks. Take a listen. Here's Amy. Before we get to your story, Amy, and how you ended up in Germany, as I do with my guests, I tend to go poking around online before I talk to them. Mm-hmm. You wrote two blogs on a blog that's called, I think it's called Soco Loco, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Soco Loco, and then it changed to Holt House A Go-Go.
Holt House, that's right. That's Holt House A Go-Go is the one that I've seen.
Yeah.
And on this one, there was a blog post. You wrote two blog posts. The part one, I think, was the things in Germany that you've adopted that because you really like them, new habits and things that you've taken on. The part two was things that you don't miss.
Oh, things that I don't miss about America?
Yeah. What surprised me was that you are one of the few people who prefers grocery shopping in Germany to the US.
Absolutely. Yes.
Maybe you want to tell me why that is, because I think almost every single guest I've ever had on here complains about how horrible the shopping here is.
So it's stressful at first, and if you don't understand, then you'll definitely have embarrassing moments. But once you're used to it, it's the most efficient, wonderful system because American grocery stores are typically huge.
Yeah,
and you're running around. It's stressful. You forget something, you have to walk half a mile, to go get it. And there's really long lines. And then you're waiting for the checker to also bag your groceries.
Right.
If there's no one available, and people just kind of stand there and wait. And when I lived there, I always just did it myself. Like, why am I waiting for this person who's putting my stuff through to also bag my groceries? And so I just love it that we just dump it all in the cart and then you do all that on your own time. In your trunk, so it's like so much faster.
Yeah. And one of the things I think you wrote in that article was that it is, if your tomatoes are squashed or something like that, there's only one person to blame. That's you who packed the bag.
Yep. And you can do it however you want, as fast or as slow as you want at your own car.
Well, this is an historic moment for the podcast because I think you're the first guest that prefers grocery shopping in Germany, which is.
I have I have another thing that I thought of
Ooh.
that is a hot button topic, and it's something that you talked about with a former guest.
Controversial. I like it.
It's very controversial.
All right. All right.
It is the sock and sandal issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Which way are we going with this? I'm a little nervous now. This is very controversial. I could lose listeners because of this, Amy.
I don't mind it.
Okay.
I think I have 3 reasons why I think it's okay. I used to make fun of it like everybody else, but I get it and I kind of appreciate it now. I think, well, first of all, socks and sandals is the most comfortable thing you'll ever do on your feet.
Yes.
Like I'm wearing socks, my Birkenstocks right now. I don't wear it out. I'll admit that. But it's the best thing you'll ever do for your feet. And it's also kind of a fashion now. Like young teenagers are wearing socks with Birkenstocks.
Yes, they are.
And thirdly, let's be honest, it's usually men of a certain age that are wearing like a sock with a sandal. And I feel like maybe they're just covering their maybe they have really ugly feet.
Or like a lot of hairy, warty feet.
So they're doing us all a favor. You know, they want to keep cool. They want to wear sandals too, but they're just covering it up because maybe they haven't really taken care of their feet in a while. And so it's really a kindness.
They're not. So, they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. Okay, that could be. That is one theory, Amy. That is definitely one theory. I'm voting
for the sock. I'm all for it.
Okay, so you're on board. You're on board with the socks. Yes. There you go. I think the guest was Nicole from the Expat Cast, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And she actually ended up going for a stroll in her socks and sandals. Right. Yeah, a prolonged stroll. And she says she doesn't do it often. Yeah, you would do it? Okay.
I would, yeah.
Okay. I'm not at that point yet. I haven't reached that point. But I agree with you 100%. It is very comfortable, and I do it around the house.
Yes.
And I do it in my garden.
Yeah.
And I think the extent I've done it to is going to fetch my garbage out of from the front of the house. But even then, every step I take, I'm like, it's like this huge. I'm just aware of it. I'm aware that I'm walking in the road with socks and sandals. And I wish, Amy, I didn't care so much. I wish I could just go, screw you people. I'm just going to do this, but I'm not there yet.
Culture that you can embrace maybe someday.
Yeah. I'm working. It's something I'm working on, I think, to get to that point. So, Amy, you're originally from the USA. How did you come to be in Germany now?
So we moved around a lot in the US for different jobs and things. And then eventually my husband got a job with the US government, which sent us from the West Coast to the DC area. And then from there, once you get started in the government, then there's lots of opportunities for moving different places around the world. And so after DC, he got a job in South Korea, and we were there for 2.5 years. But we have always wanted to be in Europe. Ever since we first met, it was something that we both had in common. And so by working for the government, it opened some doors. So he was just applying for lots of different jobs. And finally, we got one.
So how was your time in South Korea? Were you happy there?
At first, it was really hard, but then we absolutely loved it. And it was actually hard to leave. Even though we always wanted to come, it was still hard to say goodbye to the culture and the food and the friends we'd made there. So
then you, what was the reason that you always wanted to be in Europe? What's the attraction?
Well, I can say that probably since I was a child, I've had this obsession with Europe. I don't know if it was from watching lots of movies or what, but I just had this idea that it's more beautiful, it's better, it's a better life, it's magical. I don't know, just all of these things. And I think I'm right. Turns out I was right.
It's good to be right in the end.
Yeah. For my whole life, as long as I can remember, I just thought Europe is the place to be.
Wow. So it was really like a dream come true when it happened that you were moving here.
Yes.
And you said your husband had the same thing about Europe as well?
Yeah. He actually took German in high school because it was offered, and we're both from Southern California, and it's just not, I can't believe it was offered in his high school. I took Spanish. Everyone takes either Spanish or maybe French. And I only took it because German wasn't available. And we hadn't met yet, but we both did a lot of traveling to Europe on our own in our late teens and early 20s. And then when I went to college, I took a year and a half of German because I finally could. And yeah, it was just one of those things that when we met, I was like, oh, you took German too? Really? You've been all over Europe? Really? Like, it was just not something I'd ever met with somebody else.
Yeah. You've got how many kids?
3 boys.
3 boys. Were they all born in the US or sort of South Korea and Germany?
One was born in Portland, one was born in LA, and the third was born in Seoul, Korea.
Wow. And how would they adapt to the moving around to South Korea and then to Germany?
I think only the oldest, who is 11 and a half, he's the only one who really remembers Korea. For the other 2, they were are still young enough, and I think they feel like this is where they're home. They don't feel German.
Yeah.
I definitely, the TCK, third culture kid thing is definitely an issue for us, but they don't really know any other home.
Yeah. When you say it's an issue for you, are there difficulties that come with it? Some kind of challenges or?
Yeah, I think because we're an English-speaking home, their vocabulary is not they don't have the breadth of vocabulary that a German kid has, or they'll say, we're American, how come we don't live in America? Or how come no one's doing Halloween? Or just things. I think it's hard to have parents who are not completely with it with the other kids' parents. They're very sensitive to that.
Yeah. I think that's something I haven't felt yet because my kids are still a little bit younger, but I can see how that could be a thing because you speak a different language at home, you behave differently, you got different traditions to everyone else. So I could see how that would be an issue for the kids.
Know they don't quite fit in.
Yeah.
I think they feel that.
So you came to Germany and the idea was it wasn't a permanent move at first.
Well, we were kind of on a 5-year rule with the government of living overseas, and 2.5 of those years were in Korea. And so but we didn't realize that. And so when we moved here, after about a year, they told us that, we only had another 1.5 years left. And we sort of panicked, like, I don't want to go. I'm not ready to go. Where would we even go back to? Because I don't, I've lived in lots of places in the US. And it just kind of was this amazing coincidence that my husband had a meeting at work with the government, and his former professor was there as a contractor. And so they met, and his professor hired him. And so he now works for an American company, but he is the only employee that's here in Germany.
So that's kind of perfect.
Yeah. So he just has a home office. And so, everything with coronavirus, he was here anyway. That's kind of been has worked out.
So what are your plans now? Are you planning on heading back sometime soon? Is it open-ended, or are you looking to make a long-term thing here where you are?
As far as I know now, we are here indefinitely. I don't know. I mean, anything can happen, but we don't have any plans or any reason to go back, really. As long as he has his job, and as long as we can support ourselves here, I don't see why we would go back.
Yeah. And you having these ideas from such a young age of what Europe would be like and what Germany must be. And you said you had this picture in your mind that it was magical and different and I guess exotic in some ways compared to America. Maybe quaint. Exotic is the wrong word. Quaint is a better word. Yes. Is that really how things turned out now that you're living the reality? Or is your view of Germany and Europe a little different compared to what you had in mind before?
No, I was right.
You're right. So that comes back to that right. You're right.
It is just that quaint. We do a lot of traveling, when we were able to, and I'm just amazed. I can't believe that people actually live in these places, in these villages, and our village is cute by American standards, but by German standards, I mean, I can't even believe some of the villages that we go to, and everything we look at is just adorable. And you can't believe that people have their lives in such
I know.
a sweet, adorable
I know.
village.
It feels like some kind of Disneyland in some ways when you see it.
I mean, it's Disneyland is modeled after that, and they try hard, but it's it's not quite the same.
It's not quite it's
not the real thing.
It is like that. When we moved to Germany, we moved to a small city called Schweinfurt. And looking back now, it's a little industrial town. I think it's about 50,000, 60,000 people. So it's not huge, but there's a lot of engineering companies there. And it's got a church and it's got some fountains and everything. And when we came, we were like, oh, this is amazing. Europe is amazing. This is so quaint. Meanwhile, now that we know it, we realize that was really not so beautiful like the rest of, but to us, and still to us when we go there and we see that, because I've been here for 13 years and we still see it like tourists, I think. We haven't gotten used to the churches and the Fachwerk, the wooden architecture and stuff. It's beautiful.
I love it so much. There's a few buildings that still have that in our village, and I just can't get enough of it. I can't believe I live here still.
Yeah. And you go, like you say, to a normal little village that's not a tourist hotspot or anything, and you find a little cobblestone alley going down between really old buildings, and it's just amazing. We have a similar thing. I think we often have to say, wow, it is amazing that we live here, and we still feel like tourists. Like I said, it still feels like we're tourists. That feeling hasn't gone away. Right.
There's so many historic things that are still here to see. I mean, I can see a church from my window, and it was built in the 1100s. I mean, I can't even understand that, how it's still there. And another one of your guests was talking about the church bell. I can't get enough church bell. Yeah. It can bong all day long. I love the European church bells.
Well, Amy.
Maybe half the day.
They're pretty charming, but I like a significant distance between me and the bells. It was Shannon, the church bells and bicycles, and she lives directly opposite this beautiful church. And it's the same kind of thing that she also said, like, you just look out the window and there's this church just as beautiful. So you were here with the job for a certain amount of time, and I assume that the company or the government would have sorted out a lot of things for you. So when things switched to the new contract, how did that look? Did you have to make a lot of changes? Did you have to deal with a lot of bureaucracy?
Yeah. Basically everything all the benefits that we had with the government were cut off. We could no longer go on base. We couldn't shop there, which was fine. I'm totally fine not going there. And we had to change our car registration, insurance, the Aufenthaltstitel, and we built a house. We did everything changed when we switched. Yeah.
You built a house.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, my husband's an architect, and so he didn't design the house, but he's always wanted to build something. And so there's a builder here in town who's built a lot of houses, and so we just did that.
Yeah, because I was going to say that is a pretty big thing. When we were looking for a house as well, we just were like, we're not going to build, because there's so many contracts in German, and there's so many things that you have to negotiate with Germans, and our German's pretty good, and we just said no. We'll buy a house that's already standing, and we'll deal with that.
I know. Yeah, I can definitely see the benefits of that, but he really wanted. He did a lot of tweaking to make it kind of what he wanted.
Yeah, and it makes sense because he knows what he's doing, and he
and he wanted to learn it too. He wanted to learn about how it all works here.
Okay. What other challenges did you have with that kind of? What were the other challenges that came along with that kind of switch?
I don't know if I would say it was challenge. I mean, it was just, you have to be patient with all the paperwork, and you go to some Amt. My German's not nearly as good as yours, but I still struggle to think of the English word sometimes, like the different government offices, and
the offices.
You never have quite the right papers. You think you do, but you don't. And then you have to come back again. Oh no, we need this to have this signature or that. And so it's just like kind of a process of being patient and trying to figure everything out. But honestly, being able to speak English really helped us, because if we didn't understand all the complicated paperwork, we could just ask them if they spoke
in English.
Yeah.
Yes, that does.
And we had a consultant who the job is to kind of help the American community, I guess, with different paperwork and figuring out taxes and all that stuff. And so she helped advise us on things we were supposed to do.
Right. And what has it been? So you mentioned that you live in a smallish village. How small is it?
I don't know the population. It's not terribly small. We have some retail and a couple of bakeries, and I can pretty much walk to everything I really need on a regular basis. So we have that stuff.
So it can be somewhat difficult if you're in a smaller village like that to integrate into the culture. What has that been like for you to integrating into that culture?
Well, I think having kids is kind of an advantage, because then when you're going to school, you see the same parents over and over. And we built our house on the kindergarten street, and both of the village's kindergartens are right across the street from me. And so everybody knows where we live.
Yeah.
They see us walking across the street. And, when we first started here, we had one in kindergarten and one at the Grundschule. And so I would see the same people over and over and over. But still, they're speaking a dialect. Mm. And I thought, why can't I understand anything anybody is saying? Because I would always try to maybe eavesdrop at a soccer practice to try to learn and understand. And it's a dialect. And so even with seeing the same people all the time and me being a very social person, it's still really hard because they all kind of already know each other. In this village, a lot of people went to that same kindergarten when they were kids, and so did their parents. And the grandparents know each other. And so they're a really tight community. And I feel like they don't really need more friends.
No, they don't. So, we have the exact same thing here in our small village. These people have known each other for generations.
Yeah.
And why put in the effort with new people, especially if you're going to have to listen to their bad German and, try and figure out their culture? Like, there's just no need on their side, which makes things a little more difficult.
And I thought, aren't they kind of interested in who we are?
Yeah.
Like, we're not normal Americans here, because my husband's not a soldier. We built a house. Our kids are in German school. We've been here for 5 years, but no one ever says, where are you from? Why are you here? Yeah. What's your story? Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's just a German culture thing to kind of not pry, but
it's weird though. It's weird. Yeah, because if you think about it, a German moved into your neighborhood back in the States.
Right.
You'd be all over that, like finding reasons to go around there and saying, where are you from? How'd you? Yeah.
And that was my thing, my fascination with Europe. Whenever I'd meet somebody from somewhere, I'm like, where are you from? What's your story? Why did you move here?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I can say that I am personable. I'm acquainted with a lot of people. When I walk through the town, I recognize so many people. They recognize me. We wave, we say hi. Everyone's very nice. I haven't really been able to get to know them. They don't really know me. And even though I do put myself out there, whenever there's a Kuchenverkauf, I am there. I volunteer at the Bundesjugendspiele. I go to all the parent nights. We go to all the things that we can go to try to be involved.
You can't do much more than that. That's exactly the things you're supposed to be doing.
Really
putting yourself
out there. And it's just hard because it's annoying to try to talk to someone who's stumbling over their words, and you can't. It's like I can have a functional conversation with them, but I can't really have a normal chat like I would with a friend. So.
Yeah, it's very tricky, and I guess that's how you learn better German, is by having those interactions. But you need people who are going to be patient with those interactions. So it's very tricky. Is there a big American community near where you are?
Yes, there's a huge military government community near us. We don't live right in the heart of it. It's still like a half hour from us, but there's a huge American population, which seems like it might be a nice advantage. However, it's transitory.
Okay.
And in all of our moving around, I have been really fortunate to make lots of really good friends, and I've had to say goodbye to every single one of them.
Yeah.
And I am very lucky that I have two dear friends that I met right here in my village, two Americans who we just happened to meet, and we've gone on trips together, and we've had such a wonderful time together. And both of them are moving back to the US.
Oh no! I thought this was a good. I thought this was a happy story, Amy.
No,
I was like, oh, at least she's happy. At least she has these two people.
This is the story of my life. This is how it goes with when you're friends, you know, in that kind of community. It's just people are always leaving. I've been the one that's left. They've left, and it's really hard. And so I feel like I want to be friends with Americans, but I'm also tired of constantly having to make friends and then say goodbye, you know?
Yeah. And at the same time, if you're looking to integrate, if you want to get into German culture, then it is the German friendships that you're longing for, that you want to get into. It's very tricky.
Yeah. I don't know where we fit in. We're not part of the American government community. We're not really part of the German community. And my husband has no colleagues here. He's not working for a German company like so many expats do. And so we don't have that connection with colleagues and their families and things like that. So we're just kind of, I don't know where we belong, where we
you're like a little island in the middle of everyone there.
And I don't like that. I'm a very social person.
Yeah, I can see.
I don't like not knowing where I fit in, you know. That's the hardest part for me, I think.
Yeah. I think it's difficult. Of course, I didn't think of this before, but your husband working home office, he's not out meeting people either.
No. And so, he doesn't have a lot of opportunity to work on his German. And I am mostly a stay-at-home mom. I have a little business that I started, but that's with Americans. I mean, we have to be really intentional. We're not, I feel like we're sort of in a boat in the ocean, and it's not often that we have to get wet. We just kind of go to the grocery store, and I talk to my neighbors, but I have to be really intentional if I want to be talking to people.
Yeah, you have to go out of your way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tricky because then you need them, when you're going out of your way, you need them to be open to that as well. It's like a whole lot of variables that you have to kind of fit in like a Chinese puzzle.
I feel like even though it would be really hard to just be dropped in the middle and have to learn your way, I do think that there's an advantage to being forced into that. When you are working for a company and you have to learn to speak in order to survive, there's an advantage to that, because we've been here for 5 years and my German is okay, but it's not nearly as good as I thought it would be by now. Yeah. And it's just because we don't have to, you know?
Yeah. Although, to be fair, when I remember back to I remember having similar thoughts at 5 years as well about my German, first of all, and about the friends that we had. Yeah. So it could just be the time period, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, that's got the call on a real downer. We went down a really dark road there. I feel like I need to get a whiskey or something.
I'm sorry.
No, it is fine. This is what I wanted to hear about. So is this a deal breaker? Is this something that if you see things carrying on like this for the next 2 years, is it something that makes you say we're going home or we're going somewhere else?
I don't know. It scares me to say that. Like, I'm honestly not thrilled about the idea of going back to the US, and I don't even know where home is over there. And I don't know how to answer that question. I don't like thinking that we would be forced into that, but at the same time, my desire to have community and just be able to freely communicate and feel like I am part of something, that's very strong for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm 41 going on 42, and the idea of friend dating for,
it's
into my 40s and 50s and just constantly trying to find my community. I'm tired. I just want to have my friends and not always be saying goodbye and trying so hard.
Yeah, trying so hard. And like you say, going through that dating phase where you're unsure of how things are going to go and you're trying to get to the do phase. And it's draining. It's draining.
Yeah. I'm a little envious of British folks because they can just go back home and speak English, but they're still only an hour away from Germany.
Yeah.
There's no, and it's still Europe. I mean, technically, whatever, I don't know, but it's Europe. And for me to go back to my home, there's no middle ground. It's one or the other. I can't have the best of both worlds. So it's a lot of sacrifice either way.
Yeah.
Being an expat.
Yeah. I remember when we moved out to this village, it was one of the concerns for us was friends as well, because we knew how difficult it was to make friends in a city where we were before. And now we had to make friends out here in the deep country. And we were just fortunate that we had really in this village on the first day that we went to kindergarten, sign up for our daughter. And we met this other family that had moved there from North Germany, and we just kind of hit it off straight away. And they've literally become lifelong friends, and they've also moved into a house here. And I often think if it wasn't for them, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I would be feeling very similar. They are literally the only difference between me feeling like I don't have a community, I don't belong to things here. Because once you make friends with a German family or Germans, then you suddenly have access to other Germans in the area. They invite you to dinner and you meet other people there, and then it somehow grows from there. But you just need that in. And I often think, oh my God, thank God for these two, because I would be really worried if it wasn't for them.
I need to meet somebody like that.
Yes.
There's so many young families too that have kids the same age, which is really nice. I just need to get in with one of them. But families are also difficult, as we found as well, because they're already, as you said, they're already got a lot of friends, and they don't have a lot of extra time to spend making new friends or inviting people over. So it's very, very tricky. I'm going to have to get hold of you. I'm going to have to get in touch in a year's time and do a follow-up on this interview to find out what's happening. Hopefully I can get my act together.
Well, I don't know if it's your act, but it's the situation.
Yeah.
What about the decision to stay in Germany now? I think one of the things that you said to me before, either in mails or a discussion that we had before this interview, you said that you sometimes feel a bit of conflict about staying in Germany.
Yeah, I feel like, I mentioned my need for feeling like I belong, and I feel like, I literally belong to the United States, but I'm emotionally and ideologically, I feel more European. Yeah. And so I'm a study in duality, Sean. I feel torn in so many different ways. I want to be here so badly, but when I think about being here into old age, it's kind of hard for me to picture that. Like, are my kids gonna just have a completely German life forever and maybe have German partners? And will I even be able to talk with their future people? I don't know. It's weird for me to picture, and I feel a lot of guilt kind of because we're truly just here because we want to be. I feel like a lot of expats came here for a job, or maybe they are married to someone here. And so it feels like a reason. Yeah. And even if that's silly, I feel like our only reason is because we want to. And I feel bad for our families who have to spend thousands of dollars just to see their grandkids and take a grueling trip and all these things. And it's sort of a guilt issue. And I feel a little bit selfish, I guess, that, my parents are getting older. Is my sister only going to be taking care of them? And I can't really do much because I'm over here. I don't know. It's complicated.
It is. And these decisions are, like you say, when you're making them, it's almost like you're making it on a whim. There's nothing driving you to say. So you're actually deciding, you're making the choice to let your kids grow up away from your parents and stuff. It's similar to what we did as well. But so I understand those feelings of, this is a bit unfair on them.
Right. And when my husband was working for the government, it was sort of like, well, you got a job in Korea, so now move to Korea. It kind of felt like they're telling us what to do. And was sort of easier for us. And now when it's purely our own choice, I mean, we could go anywhere because he just needs a computer to do his job. And so having so much choice is kind of paralyzing in a way.
But at the same time, there's a lot of factors, and I get this with a lot of Americans that I speak to who are living abroad. There are a lot of, as you said, I think the word you used was ideological factors at the moment with what's going on in the States. And in some ways, that is also a driving force for a lot of Americans that I've spoken to and discussed with is the political system, having a look at how different countries have dealt with the coronavirus situation. There's a lot that you can point to and say, well, ideologically, this is the reason that I'm making to stay here.
Yeah, right. I feel like I was angry a lot in the United States. So it's just, I liked how Germans follow rules. I would get so angry. Why can't you just put your shopping cart back in the corral? And here it's like, you have to because you have a coin. You want to get it.
And some of them don't even have a real coin. They've got a little plastic token, but they go and put it back and take it out.
So much sense. And people follow the rules. And I really that's something that I really appreciate. I mean, I can't think of anything that I don't love about living here except for the social part of it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on that we mentioned Shannon earlier on, and you said you reached out to her.
Yeah.
And spoke to her because she said, I think that was episode 8. I never remember. I talk so often about the Shannon episode because it's an episode that a lot of people mention when they heard it. I think it struck a lot of chords. It struck a chord with a lot of people. And you said you reached out to her because you look for community wherever you can get it.
Right.
So, do you want people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I love to talk about similar issues that someone else may understand. I do talk to expats that I know, but they all seem to be in quite a different situation than we are. They're retired with no kids, or they're married to a German, and I don't really know anyone quite like us, even though everyone has a different kind of a story. But yeah, I love to chat with whoever I can who understands.
Okay. And where can people find you to get hold of you?
I am on Instagram at Amy Holt, Holt 11, the number 11.
You're the 11th Amy Holt.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll put a link to you in the show notes so people can get in touch if they want to get in touch. Mm-hmm. And what is your bit of advice for foreigners coming to Germany? Let's say they're in the same situation as you.
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that question. And so I thought about it, and I didn't think of anything exactly like that, like someone in my exact situation.
Okay.
I would say I'm already doing that. I'm trying to put myself out there and continue learning. I did come up with a piece of advice just for anybody that's coming.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And it's very practical. And it's something, it's kind of the one thing that has annoyed me a little bit about living here. And that is that everything is always closed. So check the time, the opening hours, assume it's closed. And then when you get there and it's open, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Just rejoice.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've shown up somewhere and it's like, why is it closed? Because it's a Wednesday afternoon and they wanted to. And you just
and I don't know how it is in your village, but in my village, some of the places close from 12 to 2 or from 11 to 3. You have no idea. You have no idea.
Shifts. It's sort of like it is lunchtime. And so we will all be taking lunch.
Yes.
And it's just closed. And get used to that and know when things are open.
That is very practical, Amy. That is on the nose and very practical. And you see, folks, that's what you get from this podcast. You get takeaway advice.
I got lots of that stuff if you want.
Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking so honestly. And like I said, I'm definitely getting in touch with you in a year's time to find out what's going on and where you are with your current journey.
I will try extra hard then so that I have a good report.
Yes. Thanks so much, Amy.
Thank you, Sean.
If Amy's story about making friends in Germany resonates with you, get in touch with her. As she said, she's always looking for community wherever she can find it. And I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to join the Germany Experience Facebook group where we discuss the episodes and all kinds of other things. Subscribe to the show if you haven't. And of course, music in this episode, as always, by 10 Cent Janes, my band, and additional music by Ryan Anderson until the end. I'll speak to you next week. Auf Wiederhören.